Saudi Arabia really leading this high-level Arab summit at a very critical moment for the region. These leaders basically need to architect a post-war Gaza strategy before Trump and Netanyahu do it for them.
Absolutely. What we're seeing are several factors converging: inter-Arab relations and competition, the relationship between many of these states and the United States, and of course the very tangible declaration by Donald Trump that Egypt and Gaza should take in 2.4 million, Egypt and Jordan should take in 2.4 million Gazans, and that the United States ought to take over Gaza. So there's a lot at stake, and that quite shocking and unexpected posture by the American president has spurred these Arab leaders into action.
Indeed, and you really do get the sense that perhaps even Israel was caught off guard by some of what Trump has said about the US pushing to own Gaza. But at the same time, the United States is also pushing some of these regional powers to take more responsibility for Gaza and to be more active stakeholders here. Do you think Saudi Arabia is willing to be the main coordinator, or is it reluctant to take on a role that could possibly put it in direct confrontation with Israel?
Saudi Arabia is both, actually. It's reluctant to get deeply involved because of the importance of Vision 2030 and what we've seen Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman be preoccupied with over the last year or so. But at the same time, it simply cannot afford to sit back and yield the playing field to countries like either Qatar or the UAE or Egypt, for that matter. And so I think what we're seeing is a reluctance involvement by Saudi Arabia taking the lead in coordinating and ensuring that it is somehow involved in the reconstruction of Gaza. The Arab leaders have realized that if they do not involve themselves, terms of conditions on the ground will be dictated to them. And so as a result, they're trying to be involved in order to make sure that their interests are not harmed or somehow protected in the process.
Indeed. And what we also know is that the GCC states, particularly Saudi Arabia and the UAE, have massive financial resources. And that's something that the US knows as well. Are they going to be willing to foot the bill, essentially, for Gaza's reconstruction without clear political guarantees? That's the question.
That's indeed the question, Dan, and we don't really know the answer. Estimates are that the Egyptian plan, whose precise terms are not publicly known, that plan involves something in the magnitude of $20 billion. And if that's indeed the case, it's really the Gulf states that have the kinds of resources and deep pockets to chip in and be involved. What we've seen from the Trump White House is kind of a reluctance to spend any money abroad on these sorts of reconstruction efforts, particularly for a group like the Palestinians. And so the Gulf states have to be involved. They simply cannot afford to sit on the sidelines.
Indeed. And one of the other issues here, Mehran, is that Hamas still has significant political influence on the ground in Gaza. Do you think the Arab states see Hamas as a partner in these potential reconstruction efforts?
Again, that's an excellent question. And I think circumstances are going to dictate preferences. It's not necessarily preferences. The Arab states have no love for Hamas or the broader Muslim Brotherhood movement. But we have seen that Hamas does know logistics on the ground, does have resources, does have local knowledge. And if we're going to see construction in an area that's been obliterated for all intents and purposes, it really has to be a group like Hamas in coordination with UNRWA and other UN agencies that can effect change on the ground rather than some outside power. Even the Palestinian Authority that's based in Ramallah doesn't really have the in-depth knowledge, the resources, or the legitimacy and credibility, for that matter, to effect change in Gaza.
Mehran, just finally, of course, in terms of where it stands right now, we know that Israel wants to maintain some kind of security control over post-war Gaza. The Arab states also want a solution that essentially preserves Palestinian sovereignty as well. Where does that leave prospects for a two-state solution here? Because it would seem as if the administration under Trump has pushed that to one side, and there's also failing conviction here that we are ever going to see that type of resolution. What's your view?
If there was any doubt that the two-state solution is dead, I think Donald Trump has gotten rid of those doubts. The two-state solution was dead long before October 2023, and the events that have transpired since, and now the plan, or the desire at least, to depopulate Gaza really renders that option untenable. And so I think it's time for us to think outside the box. For the political leaders of the region, for the Saudis, the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Emiratis, Qataris, everybody, for the Palestinians themselves, to come into grips with reality and to think outside the box as to how both Palestinians and Israelis can live side by side in dignity and in peace.